want to talk about the relationship yips. If you're a golfer and have been golfing for any amount of time, you know what I'm talking about. I'll never forget when I got it. It's about 15 years ago. And I'm putting, about a 3-foot putt, but it wasn't a straight putt. It had kind of a break to it, and the green was real slick. And it was a money putt. So I knew I needed to make it. And so I took the putter back, and just as I was coming through, just right before impact, I did a spastic movement. And the guys all looked at me and said, "Manny, what was that?" I said, "I don't know." And then I went to Nick, it happened to me again. Now I'm stuck with what is called the yips. And what happens when you get the yips is that you've been putting for so many years and you've made a lot of pressure putts and there's a lot riding on this putt, and so it takes on a greater deal of intensity and concentration. Well, if you've had any bad experiences missing those 3-foot putts, your memory bank kicks in. And just at impact, it sends all kind of, your mind goes haywire with what to do. So now I'm stuck in it. All these bad experiences have left me with the yips. What am I going to do? And I struggle, I'm telling you, I struggled with it for about 6 months. So finally I realized I can't keep putting the way I am. Something has to change. And I did. I went from a standard putting grip to what's called a claw. Okay, and what that did was that created different muscles in me and a different signal from my brain to my hands. And that took care of the problem. I had since trying to go back to the other one, and it didn't work. Well, just like in golf, we can develop putting yips from bad experiences. So too in relationships. If you've had any number of bad relationships and you get into another one, it's very easy to get a relationship yip. So what does that mean basically? It's that you don't trust a person. Okay? You lose that sense of trust, that sense of loyalty, that sense of they're in my corner, that sense of they got my back, that sense of, you lose that, and so you tend to do other things. Well, you know what I found? That in the Bible, this is not unusual. Jesus himself had it. Let me read to you one verse. It's found in John chapter 2, verse 24, and it says this. It says that now while Jesus was in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, many people saw the miraculous signs he was doing and believed in his name. Okay, so he was pretty popular right then. Okay, and they're all crowding around him and all that. But Jesus would not entrust himself to them. He didn't trust them. For he knew all men. He did not need man's testimony about man, for he knew what was in all men. He knew that men and people can be fickle. You get a lot of people my age, seniors that are either widowed, divorced, they're single for various reasons. They're very hesitant to get involved in a relationship because they may have the relationship yips. They've been burned enough time and betrayed and lied to that, they're very careful to get into another relationship. And then if they do and something bad happens or one of those things repeated, so you got to change something. Something has to change. Just like I went from a standard grip to having a claw grip, I had to change my thinking. Now, in the case of people and relationships and trust, that's a whole nother thing. Okay, you've got all kind of people coming on the internet now and trying to give relationship advice and all that. My advice to all that is don't listen to it. Go back to the Word. Let's face it, people are sinners. Okay? It takes time to get to know somebody. And no matter how well you get to know them, you know what? They're going to let you down. And they're going to fail you, as Jesus saw here. He knew that people were fickle. Oh, they saw him doing all these wonderful miracles and all that. Hey, yeah, we're going to come hang with you and all that. They turned right around and crucified him. Okay? The key word here, there's three things we can find here. Okay, let me break it down like this. First of all, he did not entrust. That's point one. In other words, he didn't place himself to put under their care. Okay? He knew better than to do that. He didn't entrust himself to do that. That's an interesting word. Entrust means to give over to somebody. Okay? When you get married and you make a vow, you're doing that. You're giving over, okay, to somebody. And you know, it doesn't mean much anymore, but it used to be for better or for worse, you know, true death and true health and all that other stuff. And people don't do that anymore. Yeah, most people's words, and I've found, is pretty worthless. You know, they say things, but they're not loyal. And so Jesus knew that. Why? Because he knew what was in the, and he knew all men. He knew what was in the heart of man. Men are sinners. And men are basically selfish. Man, we got so much psychobabble today. They've even inventing words like narcissism, you know, and all kinds of other to try to. Everybody is a narcissist to some degree. Basically, all that means is you're selfish. Okay, you're looking after your need rather than the needs of others. Somebody asked me, well, what does it mean to meet the needs of somebody else? I says, well, have you ever cut your finger? I said, yeah. I said, well, what do? Well, I go rinse it off under the faucet, you know, and put some iodine on it for old days, and put a Band-Aid on it. What did you just do? You met a need. You didn't wait. You met it right away. You saw a need, you met the need, and you took care of it. That's what it means to care for somebody, but a lot of people don't do that. They'll see needs and look the other way. Okay, and don't get me wrong, sometimes you'll meet needs and other times you look, people are fickle. You know, I've had people come to me. I've been single now for about almost 15 years. And probably more than that, well, that's another story. But I've had different people that have come into my life, but, you know, I don't want to say anything negative, but, you know, it's very difficult to, when you've had bad relationships in the past, to get involved with somebody else, especially towards the end of your life. You know, unless they really share the same values, the same convictions, the same doctrine, the same eternal mindset. They understand basic biblical theology and Bible and all that. But Jesus knew. So there's 3 points really. He didn't entrust himself to them. He knew what was in all men. It didn't say some. He knew what was in all. And he did not need to be educated on that point. So let me just say this to you. If you have relationship yips, you need to change what you're doing. What can you change? Well, one is through prayer. And you pray, Lord, bring me the right one, keep the wrong ones away from me. And if they do come along, because Satan can bring some along too, if they open my eyes to see what I need to see. And when you do that, you're on pretty good ground. And then allow the Holy Spirit to guide you, you know, and give you a sense of peace. You're going to have peace. If not, you're going to have turmoil. Some relationships come, all they do is bring drama. You know, they got so many irons in the fire, you're going, you can't focus. The other thing is completeness. God brings people to complete you, not compete with you. And the key thing for seniors that are older, that are Christians, is maturity. They have to have a certain level of maturity. Maturity also involves discernment. They've studied enough of the words where they can recognize right from wrong and evil. They call it what it is. They don't rationalize or pass blame or try to be a victim or try to promote ideology, which is totally, like feminism and independence and, these kind of things philosophically. So Jesus wasn't willing to do that. He saw, people see what you can do. They know that you have qualities and that you're capable. But man, listen to me. Be very careful. There's nothing worse, than getting hooked up with somebody that you shouldn't be with. Somebody once said, it's sort of like flies on a screen door. Those that are outside want in and those that are in want out. And it's a very, I have a lot of friends that are in that situation right now. I got one friend of mine, he plays golf all day, then goes home and gets drunk because he can't stand his wife. He can't, she's always nagging and he's a quiet type anyway, so we laugh with him and all that, and a lot of other guys, believe it or not, and you guys know who you are if you're listening to this, they have mistresses on the side. So that's the way they go about it, and that's common now. Okay, but if you want to do things right and you want to honor God, then you got to do it His way. But you got to be careful, because even Jesus didn't entrust Himself to other men. That word entrust, by the way, is really interesting, because entrust means that what you're entrusting doesn't belong to them. You're giving yourself for them to mold and help shape you into the image of Jesus Christ. Paul told Timothy, find faithful men that you can teach, that you can entrust what you've learned from me. And that's what we need to do. That's the change and the grip. You need to learn how to entrust in a different way than the way you have been doing before. God bless you all. I hope you all have good relationships. Bye-bye.